These are probably the most standard or classic breakfast for the Hohhot folks. So it's our second full day in Hohhot. We're gonna hang out in the city today. But first, we are going to go to the Muslim street to find some brunch. Shaomai and lamb offal soup. And we are going to the Muslim street. We're gonna get there by riding a bike or moped. Bicycling is economical, eco-friendly, and you get to see the cityscape from these back streets to the most developed part of downtown around Zhenhua Plaza. Our destination was a place that surely rings a bell with some of you, Kuanxiangzi, the Quan Lane, but it's not the same place you're thinking about. More on that in the description section. This area in Hohhot is sometimes colloquially called Muslim Street. You could easily tell by the distinct Islamic architecture. Restaurants and food vendors line both sides of the streets, including plenty of Shaomai and lamb offal eateries, like this one. But we came here for another shop recommended by a local I contacted, 白老大杨家水Shaomai. Coincidentally, we overheard a conversation during dinner on the same day, in which diners argued if 白老大 or 老贝尔 is better. That's another lamb offal soup specialist that we eventually visited. I'll reveal our thoughts on who's better in the video about 老贝尔, but this little joint 白老大 was pretty amazing. Let's kick things off with the much anticipated lamb offal soup. The lamb offal soup we missed yesterday. If you think lamb offal sounds awful, skip this video, but you'll be missing out. Yes, you'll be missing out on not one or two, but three kinds of awesome offals. First off, lamb tripe. This is the same type of 百叶 or book tripe mentioned in the last video. The grayness is natural. In fact, a glossy whiteness is indicative of bleaching. This is the most expensive of the offals here, and you could even order a plain bowl of tripes. Seen with the tripe here is something further down the gastrointestinal tract, the intestines. Whereas book tripes are crunchy, intestines are chewy, which is why intestines were cut into skinny rings or shreds to make chewing easy. Although many consider Inner Mongolian food unrefined, but there are still such minute details that represent trinkets of wisdom. Contrary to the little pieces of intestines, the lungs were cut into big chunks because they aren't chewy but spongy, effortless to chomp on. Lungs are rare to come by. I've only had them a handful of times and all were pork lungs, like this changfei tang, intestine and lung soup. One reason for this rarity is because lungs are notoriously hard to clean due to the innumerable tiny airways and air sacs. These lungs were flushed clean and they fully soaked up the mutton broth, including fragrance of chili oil and herbal tone of coriander. They totally took my breath away. All three offals were great, but the lungs reigned supreme. The number one partner for Yang Jia Shui lamb offal soup is 贝子, a type of flatbread that comes in many varieties, some round, some sweet, some with fillings. But this plain version is most common because of its versatility. During a volcano trip one day ago, our driver brought his own lunch, which was beizi flatbread eaten with pickles. Yet another way to enjoy beizi is... one way to eat the beizi is to create a sandwich with the shaomai as the fillings. Maybe we'll try that out later. We didn't try that out later because the beizi was too dry and stiff, but when torn and tossed in a bowl and eaten like yangrou pamo of xiangzi, the dense layers could take up the soup without disintegrating, turning into a toothsome lamb offal stew. And for the shaomai, we chose the pan-fried variety instead of the standard steamed option as we did yesterday. Golden and tempting as they may be, go slow or risk getting sprayed all over your face because the mutton stuffings were even fuller and juicier than the ones we had a day ago. These shaomai also had protruding, crispy edges. These might be the result of a very thin layer of starch water added to the pan during frying. That's one trick sometimes used for pan-fried dumplings. To help wash down these foods, the halal and handcrafted yogurt. Based on the address shown on the cup, it would seem that the producer is a small-time operation somewhere in the neighborhood. It tasted rustically milky and had a pudding-like texture, more solid than liquid. We also had a punch made from mashing dried fruits. It's called 西果干 or 西果羹, roughly meaning watered dried fruits or watered fruit stew. The sweet and sour profile really cut down the greasiness of the foods, especially a pan-fried shaomai. I'll elaborate more in the description section, but in essence it's a slightly viscous blend with discernible chunks of persimmon and apricots among other fruits, as seen at this nearby store that sells 西果羹 ingredients. After the meal, we strolled toward the Great Mosque of Hohhot, the oldest and largest of the 8 mosques that stand or once stood in the city. And en route, we passed by another similar halal restaurant, Yuli, which was also recommended to me by the local I spoke of earlier. This neighborhood is filled with heritage, from culinary to architectural. We thought these were even more worthy of exploration than the famous 大昭寺 Temple and 塞商老街pedestrian zone we visited later during the day. 再见!